Ladies and gentlemen, we have some absolutely breaking news here today. You see, it would seem as if the European Union is on the cusp of fining Elon Musk $1 billion for spreading disinformation. As the report reads, EU threatens $1 billion fine against X, free speech on trial. Brussels is reportedly preparing a fine of over $1 billion against X under the Digital Services Act, claiming the platform hasn't done enough to fight disinformation. Their solution? Censorship demands, forced product changes, and potentially roping in Elon's other companies like SpaceX to calculate the penalty. X hasn't backed down, and Elon has promised a very public battle in court. Looks less like content moderation and more like speech control, EU style. Now, folks, of course, this entire situation is about as ironic as any situation can possibly get. Elon Musk's platform X is not only one of the most free speech social media platforms on the internet, but it also has pioneered one of the most ingenious mechanisms with which to combat disinformation, community notes. Pretty much, X users can collectively weigh in on a post's credibility, which makes getting away with blatant fake news almost completely impossible. Meanwhile, let's be honest here, it's not like the European Union exactly has a strong relationship with free speech at the moment. In fact, take a look at what the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, had to say about all of this just the other day.
As technology evolves, we need to build up societal immunity around information manipulation. Because research has shown that pre-bunking is much more successful than debunking. Pre-bunking is basically the opposite of debunking. In short, prevention is preferable to cure. Perhaps if you think of information manipulation as a virus, instead of treating an infection once it has taken hold, that is debunking. It is much better to vaccinate so that the body is inoculated. Pre-bunking is the same approach. Because disinformation relies on people passing it on to others. It is essential that people know what malign information's influence is and what the techniques are that are behind it. And as the knowledge goes up, our chances of being influenced goes down. And that builds up the society resilience that we will need.
Yeah, so folks, do you see all of that mumbo jumbo for what it really is? When she uses the word pre-bunking, what she really means is that the European Union, a bunch of nameless, unelected bureaucrats, should get to decide what information you have access to. That is what pre-bunking really means. And so, given that's the case, Elon Musk's X.com poses a huge threat to the European Union's control over what information people have access to. Really, here's the truth. These accusations of disinformation serve only one purpose: to silence pro-Trump and conservative viewpoints in Europe that challenge the European Union's position of power. And by the way, we know this is the case because just a couple months ago, the European Union talked about fining Elon Musk $300 million when he publicly gave his support to Germany's AfD party. And for those of you that don't know, the AfD party is sort of like Germany's MAGA movement. Really, all they want to do is secure their own borders and start deporting immigrants that have entered Germany illegally. So as you can imagine, the globalist bureaucrats in the European Union are not exactly the biggest fans of the AfD. But anyway, when Elon Musk endorsed them, the European Union started talking about fining him hundreds of millions of dollars and banning X from the EU altogether, all because he dared to push back against the radical globalists. And so now, as all of this is unfolding, the European Union is coming after Elon Musk again, this time with a $1 billion fine. And you know what? As all of this is happening, I can't help but be reminded of what J.D. Vance had to say about the European Union just a couple days ago. Take a look.
I really believe that we have a great deal in common with Europe. And I'm not, yes, the Europeans annoy me sometimes, and yes, I disagree with them on certain issues, but we have to remember that is the cradle of Western civilization. The entire idea of Christian civilization that led to the founding of the United States of America, that was formed in Europe. The cultural bonds, the religious bonds, these things are going to last beyond political disagreements, but I think that Europe, and frankly, I would have said this about America a year ago, but Europe is at risk, I think, of engaging in civilizational suicide. They are unable to, or unwilling, too many countries to control their borders. You see them starting to push back against that, and good, that's a good thing. You see them starting to limit the free speech of their own citizens, even as those citizens are protesting against things like the border invasion that got Donald Trump and a number of European leaders elected. So look, I want Europe to thrive. I want them to be an important ally. Part of that is going to be Europe respecting its own people, respecting its own sovereignty, and America can't do that job for them. If you have a country like Germany, where you have another few million immigrants come in from countries that are totally culturally incompatible with Germany, then it doesn't matter what I think about Europe. Germany will have killed itself, and I hope they don't do that, because I love Germany and I want Germany to thrive.
So folks, here's the reality. Right now, Europe does have a very serious problem with free speech, or rather, a lack of free speech. I'm not kidding when I say this, but all across Europe, people are being fined or even thrown in jail for speaking out against their government's behavior, especially when immigration is concerned. It's actually insane. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is why our First Amendment is such a big deal. I mean this when I say it, but there's not a single other country in the world that has free speech protected to the degree that we do here in the United States of America. It's also worth noting the European Union does something very sneaky when it comes to the idea of free speech. They'll go on for days about how they do, in fact, have free speech just like we have here in America, but that they don't tolerate things like hate speech or illicit speech or disinformation. In fact, it's these very terms that they're using right now to try to take down Elon Musk. But when you ask for clarification as to what those terms actually mean, hate speech, illicit speech, disinformation, you quickly realize that it's the nameless European Union bureaucrats that get to define those terms. So, in other words, oxymoronically, the European Union will say that they have free speech, but the European deep state gets to decide what you can and can't say. Make sense? Yeah, I didn't think so. But okay, check this out. President Trump himself actually gave his thoughts on all of this. Take a look.
The European Union's it was formed in order to screw the United States. I mean, look, let's be honest. The European Union was formed in order to screw the United States. That's the purpose of it. And they've done a good job of it, but now I'm president.
And so there you have it, folks. But you know what? Trump is absolutely correct. When it comes down to it, the European Union really is pretty much just an anti-American entity. We've seen this with lopsided trade tariffs that they've applied on us. We've seen this with their refusal to help fund NATO. And now we're seeing this with their overt censorship of free speech. But now I'll tell you what, Europe's recent flirtation with tyranny is just a good reminder of why our country was founded in the first place and what makes us unique as a nation and as a people. Here in America, we unapologetically support free speech, even if that means that sometimes free speech can get a little bit ugly. And on top of that, we sure as hell don't relinquish our God-given right to free speech to a bunch of unelected globalist bureaucrats, be they in Europe or even here in our own country. That, ladies and gentlemen, is never happening. And so that, ladies and gentlemen, is why whatever happens with this billion-dollar fine, I hope that President Trump stands up and says, yeah, no, it's time to put America first. Now, folks, before we wrap up with today's video, I want to say real quick that I've actually gone ahead and made a community Facebook page where I'll be posting additional news and updates as it relates to all of this. So, hey, if you guys use Facebook, check out the pinned comment down below and give that page a follow. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for this video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there. As I like to say, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton with my daily struggle here on YouTube. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.